welcome to Breakfast with Bobsy. It's a pleasure having you on this rainy mid-autumn day in Hong Kong. Christine Loh, you don't need any introduction really in Hong Kong. You've been socially active and politically active and environmentally active, serving Hong Kong for so long. I first got to hear about you in my very early days in Hong Kong, 93, 94. Back then you were part of the Legislative Council. You were a legislative councillor. I think you started in 1992.
That's correct.
And then you served until 2000? Right. And you're also a founding member of Civic Exchange, Citizens Party. You're co-chair of Friends of the Earth back then, at one time. And you're a published author. And recently you were the Undersecretary for the Environment in the Hong Kong government until July 2017.
Yes.
And I do want to talk about your books because I haven't read them, but I'm aware of them and I've read the introduction. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And above all, you're a big inspiration to me and what you stand for and how you stand for things and how you navigate the minefields. It's very admirable.
Well, you're very kind and generous.
You're welcome. Now, where to begin, I don't know, but perhaps let me start by beginning. What was your eureka moment, your moment that really inspired you and perhaps woke you up to serving humanity?
I don't think I ever looked at what I can do and who I am in such a grand way. Over time, I found that I was given an opportunity to do public things. And I recognize that the public realm is different from your own private realm because you're not just doing something for yourself, you're doing something that has a tremendous impact on other people. Therefore, you can't just look at yourself, what you think, but you have to consider something that is much wider and bigger than yourself. So I think that put me on a different kind of mindset. The second thing was, when I became a member of the legislature, you could say that was a really big moment, that I wasn't a member of a non-profit organization, an advocacy group, or a kind of do-gooder organization. I was really in politics where the decisions have an impact on everybody.
In the deep end, right?
Well, I felt the pressure of responsibility. And I also felt greatly that I didn't know everything. I mean, my God, in fact, I knew so little. Because you're not just, as I said, thinking about what is good for you or what you think personally about something. Because every time you vote for something or you articulate something, you promote something, it has a much wider impact. So first of all, it was a tremendous learning journey. Secondly is I always thought I need to think more deeply or, my gut reaction or something I didn't like, I need to ask myself again, is it just me and my own assumption? Or is there a better way? So you could say it was a kind of long drawn out eureka moment, but the moment was driven by the responsibility.
And was there a particular person around you who had a big influence on you, an author or some writer or visionary or artist?
Oh, definitely. But this person influenced my life way before I got into public service.
Yes.
He was a Catholic priest. His name is Laszlo Ladany. He was a sinologist, very interesting background. He went from Europe. He was a Catholic priest. He ended up in China. He became a China specialist. Then he came to Hong Kong. He was attached to one of the colleges at Hong Kong University.
You met him?
And I met him. Well, actually, somebody introduced him to me through his writing. And And I thought, wow, this is just another order of magnitude at a time when China was a closed society.
Yes.
And this person was writing deeply about what was happening in China at the moment. Not just history, which he knew a lot about.
When was he writing? 70s?
In 70s and 80s. And in the early 80s, I was introduced to his penultimate last piece of writing. He wrote a newsletter called China News Analysis, which was famous among sinologists.
Did he write in English or?
He wrote in English.
Right.
And I contacted him at Ritchie Hall at Hong Kong University. And I wrote to him because, I didn't have his phone number, and I wrote to him.
You didn't send him an email?
No emails in those days. So I wrote to him and I said, I'm a relatively young person. I'm interested in China. I read what you wrote. I'd like to learn more. May I get in touch? And then I wrote my address and my phone number. He called one night. So I then went to see him, and really I learned from him. And what inspired me about him was he was a deeply spiritual person. He was a man of God, but he was also an intellectual.
Yes.
So I saw in one person someone very, very clever, very, very learned, with full critical faculties, but yet at the same time, he had the spiritual dimension.
Beautiful.
And this was a person that combined these two things.
Yes.
And, I just held that vision in my mind all the time.
A complete man.
Complete person.
And was he everything you'd expected and everything you'd anticipated the time you spent with him?
I spent too little time with him.
Have you passed away? Have you moved on?
Passed away, yes, passed away
Here in Hong Kong.
In Hong Kong some years ago.
The name rings a bell.
No.
Yeah.
Called the last Oladani.
Yeah.
Very, very well known amongst China's scholars.
Yes. So you could say he was perhaps a pivotal turning point?
Typical that you could have in one person, someone very critical in an intellectual sense, but someone who was empathetic, who was generous, who was kind, who believed in God, who was spiritual,
The heart
who
and
was
the mind.
tolerant,
The heart and the mind.
all in one person.
The yin and the yang. Beautiful. I often ask people who inspire other people, who inspired them, right? And I've been fascinated by this for a long, long time. I was deeply inspired by William Blake, the poet, the painter, the artist, the visionary. So then the question comes up, well, who inspired him? And then you go back and you research, and then you find out that he was inspired by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who was credited with starting the Romantic movement.
Yes.
Well, who was Jean-Jacques Rousseau inspired by? It's a beautiful lineage. It's what you call the perennial wisdom. It's been around forever. And then you go back to the 1400s, and then the 1300s, and then you go back to the ancient Romans, and then the Greeks, and then you end up in ancient China, Lao Tzu.
Well, that's what it is to reading and admiring these people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm heavily influenced by Lao Tzu and the I Ching that you see here,
Yes.
and those teachings, because they ring true today more than ever. Yeah, nice one. And I don't know where to begin with you, but before we talk about your new book, which I can't wait to read, by the way, as a woman, as a beautiful woman, I've always admired your beauty and your poise and how you stand and how you keep yourself in this society. As a woman in perhaps what was more of a man's world back then, maybe still is to some extent, how have you found navigating and pushing forward what you believe in?
I think we were very fortunate, or I was very fortunate, to have my professional time in Hong Kong. And during my childhood and adolescence, there were enough examples of working women who did well,
Right.
that gave me a picture that women can do things. So I think that was very important. And I looked at my mother, I looked at her sisters and her friends, because, those were the people you saw when you were young. You didn't necessarily look out and see the wider world,
No.
because we were too young at the time. but I saw my mother, dressing well every day and going to work. So that became the default, that one day I too could go to work. Then secondly is in a way, my mother's generation kind of beat down the door for women here.
Yes.
And it really was for us to kind of go and keep going, open more doors. I never felt I had to be different, be more like a man. And I also had an experience in a way, my first real job as a commodities trader, that there were advantages in being a woman. And actually, you didn't have to be spending time with the boys. Men like to gather after work and have a drink and shoot the crap, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
They have a certain men talk.
Yes.
And I decided early on in my career when I was working for this particular company that I didn't want to do that. And actually, the boys didn't really want me there either, because then they were much more constrained. So,
were you one of the few women in commodities trading?
I was the only one at the time in at least my company. There were very, very few women. But I also found that on a more one-to-one basis, they were quite happy to open up and talk about their girlfriends, and because we were working in the same company, we could share their individual anxieties and concern about things in the company, so I felt that was very human.
Yes.
That was very human. And it was all right. And I think because I was quite good at my job, I had their respect. I mean, I wasn't a freeloader.
No.
I was as good as they were when it came to work, and we had a nice personal relationship.
No. And they probably opened up to some secrets as well, which might have given you an edge.
I mean, I knew them as human beings.
Yes.
And the competition was different.
We're talking 80s, right?
Yes, that's right.
80s,
That's right.
yes.
I mean, obviously we were competing with
Yes.
each other, so to speak. But I guess I was lucky. I mean, it was quite good for the company to have a woman there as well. And because I think the main thing was I did my job well enough that nobody could criticize me for that.
Yes.
And my relationship with each one of them was really quite good.
Nice. Back in the day, right?
Back in the day, yeah.
Of course, you come from a successful business, if you like, background, right? Which was probably a stepping stone for you to enter the government in the early 90s.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't? No.
Not really the business side. But the business side is an experience.
So how were you headhunted, so to speak, or who tapped you on the shoulder?
Well, I know exactly who did that. David Ford, who was at the time the chief secretary. So this was when Chris Patton arrived in Hong Kong, and obviously this was the last 5 years.
Yes.
And the reason that I guess they tapped my shoulder was because I already had some exposure in Hong Kong on public issues.
Right.
So my life was, my daytime job was doing commodities trading, and my nighttime interest was with a group of people in Hong Kong from, different backgrounds who were interested in public issues. And that group was called Hong Kong Observers, and I was an active member. That was how I was noticed.
Right.
So obviously during the final years of British rule, they were looking for younger people who would support more democracy, or the early phase of introducing some element of democracy in Hong Kong. So I guess that's why they tapped my shoulder.
Good. Democracy is something you care deeply about, but also you were fascinated, maybe still are fascinated, by the Communist Party in China.
Yes.
And one of your earlier books, The Underground Front.
Yes.
I read the introduction, fascinating. So now, you were inspired by communists like so many of us, right? But the writings of Marx and Hegel before him, right? And that changed. So that truly inspired you, right?
Yeah. Well, when I was at university, I read very widely, and Marxism, socialism, the socialist movement in Europe was very interesting and inspiring history.
Yes.
And I associated that with where I came from, which was Hong Kong and China. So China was going through Maoism, and being in Hong Kong, and I was probably one of the few people that would go and watch leftist movies during the summer holidays because it was different.
Yes.
I mean, I was truly fascinated.
Yes.
So I was always interested in the isms and how they came about and what they really were about. And a lot of the isms have values and ideals behind it. And of course, when you roll it out and actually practice it, okay, you have to make all kinds of compromises and it's very difficult. But the idea of socialism, communism, and Marxism. I mean, Marx wrote such tremendous stuff, and he was an observer of capitalism.
Indeed.
And that's, and he probably still remains to be the most acute observer of the consequence of capitalism.
Yes, absolutely.
So, in fact, a little secret, I reread Marx from time to time.
Good for you. Because that is an insight very few people know, because they're all communism was put into one package and discarded, right?
Yes,
but the reality, there were deep insights, especially coming from Marx, right?
And, growing up in Hong Kong and studying in England, in the West, socialism and Marxism was bad.
Yeah.
Capitalism was good.
Four-legged good, two-legged bad.
Do you know what I mean? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the background in which we grew up. And then, of course, coming back to Hong Kong, believing in liberal democracy, but watching China and how it struggled in the last 40 years to do what it has done. And then, frankly, today, liberal democracy is in a bit of a problem. How do we go forward? I mean, I get the sense very strongly that for the next generation, particularly for younger people, this notion of isms, or this notion of non-isms, I mean, practically, how do you advance the human condition? What kind of political system do we need? Or how do we solve problems?
Yes.
That is a very major issue going forward. So that's what I'm interested in
and
today.
this is the subject of your latest book,
Yes.
No Third Person.
No Third Person, which
And it's published on October the 1st.
Yes.
China National Day, very soon.
It's coming, and I feel that Hong Kong, we also need to settle in our own minds our relationship with China.
Yes.
And we have to accept China today as what it is.
Yes.
And how can then once you do that, you accept it for what it is, that we're part of one country, I think then we can talk about betterment. And it's about national betterment and what role we can play. But in a way, you have to declare your acceptance. You have to declare your loyalty to China.
Yes.
And then think about how to make it better.
Yes. So it's almost like getting the foundations right. Because the foundations have shifted over the last couple of decades, and they are what they are today. And your new book is the Hong Kong story, right? It's a Hong Kong story. I haven't read it; it's not out yet. But it's a narrative that's very important to the young ones.
Yes, I think so.
Now, I was down at the Umbrella Revolution, the Yellow Umbrella Revolution. That's my umbrella, the original one from back then. And I was very inspired because I saw youngsters who could strum 2 chords on the guitar.
Yeah.
They were Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
An artist who could do 2 strokes on the wall was suddenly Banksy.
Yeah.
And I was fascinated. And, we're just around the corner and we were sending, mana food down to the students and hanging out with them. And I was trying not to get involved from a political stance, but from a humanitarian stance. And I saw a cultural revolution. I saw a cultural awakening, a new Hong Kong identity emerging that was creative, that wasn't necessarily political.
Yes.
And I think that was a very successful revolution, if we call it a revolution.
Well, my own sense is it's good that young people were interested.
Yeah.
And that's the starting point.
Yes.
Young people are interested. They seem a bit anxious and dispirited right now. And I'm concerned that we can talk ourselves in Hong Kong to death, and we forget that there's a role that we can play.
Yes.
And the role does not have to be confrontational or fearful all the time. We have to look at China for what it is, and we have to look at ourselves, and we have to ask ourselves some deep questions. And how can we navigate this non-rejection of China with how we can build something here that could be a part of national betterment? We need to ready ourselves for a different kind of empathy and sense to do that.
Yes.
Because otherwise, I think we're going to continue to be stuck. And that's really what my new book is about.
Yes. We don't want to be stuck in the past, do we?
We don't.
We want to move dynamically with a strong identity of who we are and the role we can play. And I say we, but I'm not even Chinese, but I've been here so long now, and this is my home,
Yes.
it's my chosen home.
Yes.
I try and serve Hong Kong as well,
Yes.
in the best way I can. So I totally concur with you, and I think we have to be holistic in our thinking. We live in a different world now. China's changing all the time.
Yeah.
Hong Kong has changed, but at the same time we have this budding young energy that is creative and cultural and has its own identity.
Yeah.
So I hope your book is going to be widely read. Is it going to be published in Chinese as well?
I hope so. After the English version is out, because I write write much better in English than I could write in Chinese.
Do you think in Chinese?
I think this is how it works. On my own, I think in English. However, I almost feel I go into an altered state when I'm in a Chinese environment and I am speaking Chinese.
Yes.
Particularly when I'm speaking Mandarin. Of course, it's a much more conscious effort than for me to speak Cantonese.
Right.
And it's more formal.
Yes.
It's interesting to me as well, but I don't think it's unique because, for people who are bilingual or multilingual, people know that we have all these different personas where we're absorbed into the culture and the language of the language and the culture itself.
Understood. I'm trilingual and I now try other languages as well, so I know if I'm speaking in another language, it's not so much that your personality changes.
Yes.
It's more just like your character changes, right?
Well, we're
A
more
little bit.
sensitive.
Yeah.
You're then sensitive to that culture.
Yeah.
And I learned this. I guess many years ago when I was younger. You can still say what you want, so it's not about censoring yourself.
Yeah.
But you may say it very differently.
Understood.
Because you want to communicate in that different cultural and linguistic.
Almost like you become a better human being because there's another side to you that comes out that is very comfortable in that other culture and kind of know their ways. But then you can flip back to this culture and know their ways. It's almost like we're multi-dimensional beings, right?
That's why I'm very keen for young people to learn more languages, more dialects. It's such a privilege to be able to enter into different milieus of culture and experience.
And do you find public speaking also gives you that edge? Like when I get a microphone, I also transform into another side of my personality that's perhaps more articulate, more clear, more direct, more diplomatic.
Yes, and on the occasion, and a part of my public life is addressing the public at large in formal occasions. And I think it is important to be able to think through that actually this is all written down for posterity.
Yes.
Do I have something meaningful to add?
Yes.
Actually, if you don't sit down.
Yes, exactly. Perhaps when you write a book, it's the same, right?
Absolutely.
You're very conscious that everything you're putting down on paper is there as a record, right?
I think writing really, our teachers have always told us writing is very exacting, but it demands that you're exactly yourself. Writing succinctly, and have you got your thoughts well organized? It's very, very good training for anybody.
I don't like the editing part. I'm not an editor, but I love to write.
Yes.
I love to write.
I like to do both. Well, actually, how should I put it? I don't really like to do editing, but having run a think tank,
Yes.
I've had to do quite a lot of reading of the work of others
Yes.
and ask or clarifying, talking to the author about clarifying thought and helping with editing. So I've done a lot of that,
Yes.
and I really appreciate good editors because they help you to articulate and think better.
Well, it's like a good producer, right? Or a good director.
Yeah.
They can completely transform the subject.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, you've been in public service for over 30 years, right?
Directly.
And I'd love to talk about your background as well. And, you straddle both cultures beautifully, the West East. But what are your favorite moments, if any, where you went, yes, in the last 30 years of being a change maker?
Well, there were a number of, there are those big moments that are kind of public.
Yes.
And then, of course, there are private moments. The state that I love to be in is, usually comes from friends and being happy and silly and, silly in the sense that we really enjoy our time together.
Yeah.
But we just enjoy each other, and we can be ourselves and we can reminisce. And now that I'm much older, you've lived life, and there are many fellow travelers, old school friends, old colleagues, and so on. And they have traveled with you for a specific period, and no one else have traveled with you on those journeys. So when we get together with our different groups of friends, it's just magical. Now, the public moments, of course, winning elections, it's an amazing feeling. It's because tens of thousands of people put their trust in you. I don't think you could kind of have a higher sense of feeling good.
Unless you're a rock star on stage and there's 100,000 people.
Well, that's right.
That's the other one.
That's right. So those were very significant moments. And in public life, in political life, it is about getting something done. And when I've managed to get something done, either very publicly or privately, that's going to say, well, that was good.
Yes. And you did win an election, or both elections, quite comfortably, right?
Yeah.
Over 60%,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I can concur with that. And were there any, perhaps, policies that you pushed through? I know you're involved with the Society for the Protection of the Harbour, and you were involved in... Yeah? That must have been quite something,
That was great. That was very important, very public, it's enduring. But there was actually another piece of legislation which I worked on and was successful, and it was really amending the anti-corruption legislation in Hong Kong. It was really changing a little bit of the law to allow actually greater freedom of reporting.
Right.
Those moments were very special because it involved a lot of give and take, and actually in the end the government disagreed, right? They took a more conservative approach, but in the legislature we won. But it wasn't one of those where the government couldn't accept it. And afterwards, both myself and the colleagues on the government side, we came together again and acknowledged that was a good thing for Hong Kong. So those were very special moments that I treasure and remember.
Right. And as Under Secretary of the Environment recently, that was just a year ago, right? Did you enjoy that role?
I did.
Yeah.
I did in the sense that I was in a position where I could navigate and where we could get something done.
Yeah.
not the day-to-day of, having a title, but really the opportunity to get something done. So one of the things that I know, you would be particularly happy about is Ivory. And that got done, and I played an important role in that, where I saw the opportunity. China was going to move, and looking back today, it was a moment where the U.S. government and the Chinese government could agree on something. That was also the time of the Paris Agreement on climate change. There was a moment in time where the U.S. and China were willing to work together on things they could agree, which really helped the world. And Ivory was one of them. And I thought, let's walk into that door.
Wonderful. And it must have been a tough position to be in as well, right? Because you care deeply about the environment, as your record shows, and as we've known each other over the years. But also, you're a public servant, right? So you have to be careful how you stand and how you maneuver. And I admire that. It's something I hope I don't find myself in that position, because I'm a free spirit, and you know how it goes. But do you remember when we did Save the Human, Don't Eat the Planet?
Yes.
That small infomentary, and you were on it, and you were saying, the amount of carbon that's emitted by the meat and dairy industry is 18%, while the transport was only 13% back then. Did you ever watch that? That small infomentary?
I don't remember right now.
It was only 6.5 minutes. We flicked it onto YouTube. Okay. And this was 2008, 2009.
Oh, okay.
And the message was, reduce your consumption of meat, fish, and dairy for the environment. Of course, now it's a hot topic.
Right.
But back then, it was seen as a pink elephant. And I remember you immediately said yes, and we went up the road from your office, Civic Exchange.
Yes,
I think we just went up Harvard Knott Road there in the park, and we filmed you, just, 1 minute.
Yes, I now remember. And I did see it, but, that's already 10 years ago, so I can't quite remember, but I did watch it.
But that little infomentary, which was called Save the Human, as opposed to Saving the Planet.
Yes, now I remember.
Went on to win Best Documentary at the Hong Kong Film Festival.
Now that I didn't.
I know.
Oh my God.
Like someone nominated it went in, and next thing you know, we've won. And Will Lau, the director who helped me do it, said, Bobsy, I've been directing for like decades, I've never won anything. And now we come along and we do this little thing and we win an award. So he was very happy. But it was pivotal. It led to the whole idea of Green Monday and the whole movement of getting schools to invest meat. It was timely. And now, of course, it's a very, very important message. And in Mana, we say diet change, not climate change. And this is a main voice that we're voicing right now. But the beauty is the young generation are getting it. The millennials and the Gen Z, they're like,
we can eat a lot less meat.
And also a lot of them are saying, well, I don't want to eat any, I want to be vegan. So we're getting young girls coming into Mana, always the girls, they always lead the way, and I want to talk to you about that point, saying, I'm vegan, I'm proud. And they're doing it for moral and ethical reasons, for principles and values. Talking of girls, I believe that the world is undergoing a shift in consciousness, a transformation, where our worldview is shifting from a materialism worldview, an outdated paradigm, into an emerging consciousness worldview, a consciousness paradigm. And the role of the feminine in this is very, very important. Because we've been living in a masculine-dominated paradigm for thousands of years. So I wonder if you can reflect on that, or if you sense this movement, this awakening?
I do think that people are hooking into a different range of things than before. Now, it may partly be that the societies and the countries that we're in have advanced beyond dire poverty.
Yes.
And we are, and I think the environment, climate change, these are real things that are impacting our consciousness. And what do you do about it? And it is about how we see ourselves and how we behave and what we don't do anymore.
Yes.
Because that's going to create further harm. Young people find it much easier to absorb that. I think mostly because for for maybe 2 or 3 decades now,
yeah.
young people going through school at least have the 101 of environmental consciousness, equal opportunity.
They're born into it, aren't they?
They're born into it.
Yeah.
So they no longer question whether it is right or wrong. They want to say, that's part of me.
Yes.
And that's very helpful. Now, it's also one of my sense that they can be consumers, but those who are in power got to make sure that they don't excuse themselves by saying, well, the young will deal with this.
Yes.
Because if you are able to make decisions today, then try and make the best right decisions that you can.
Yes. We are time sensitive, aren't we? I mean, we're aware that the oceans are depleting rapidly, right? Deforestation, groundwater pollution, climate change, etc. So it's no longer a question of, let's pass the buck or let's defer this to the next political party. We can't. And this is where I see a strong awakening amongst the youngsters.
Yes.
They're empowering themselves and also realizing perhaps that they are inheriting this global warming planet.
Yes.
Which is very different to our generation perhaps, where we always had time. Now the young ones, I don't think they have the privilege of time that we have.
That's right.
But nevertheless, the baton has been passed on, I think.
Yeah.
And I think they're running, and they're running beautifully.
Yeah. So they're going to run faster. They're going to maybe do things that we don't expect today. How they're going to do it. They have a different sense about technology. This whole idea of sharing things rather than owning things. And I think even in Hong Kong and mainland China, where people have gotten rich very quickly, they've quickly gone into the consumption end. And I think people do realize after you spend a lot of money consuming that you're not necessarily happier. You've solved the basic poverty problem.
Yes.
But to be fulfilled, it's not about consuming more and more material things.
No, it's not. And I think this is shown today through books and documentaries and documentaries. I think it's out there in the public consciousness, if you like, that materialism or material wealth does not equate well-being, peace of mind, and happiness. And I think this is something that we can do in our work today to make it easier for the young ones, so they don't have to burn all their 10 fingers to realize fire burns, right? Now, before we end this lovely chat, any chance of you becoming a chief executive?
Oh gosh, no.
Come on.
No. I mean, it's not what I want to do, and I'm not on that trajectory.
I'll give you another coffee.
At this stage in my life, I want to spend more time with my family, my daughter in particular, who's 13 years old. That's very important to me. And I don't have any. I don't have anything I want to build, so I'm not looking for another career. I'm not looking to build some kind of organization. So what I'd like to do is, the connections, the skills, and the knowledge that I have, if I could be helping others. There are younger people, there are different people, there are many people out there who have inspirational ideas, who are doing good. They're doing whatever they're doing. And if I can assist them in doing what they want to do, then I'm perfectly happy with that.
perhaps now, right? Because what about in 10 years' time? You'd never say no, would you?
No, in 10 years' time.
Once your daughter's in her 20s.
But
and
I'll be at another stage in my life.
Yes.
And I kind of think the trajectory that I'm on right now, it's really not the political trajectory, although I'm very interested in politics, and because politics to me is not about, it's not a zero-sum game. Politics to me, this is the people's business.
Yes.
And we should dedicate ourselves to the people's business to make it better.
Yes.
So that's what I want to do, to help others to build that. And young people have a different mindset, they have a different sensibility. Why not for me to see how I can engage that rather than do something of my own?
Yes. Understood. Nevertheless, I think you could be in a position one day down the line, when the time is right. No, not at all. You'd make a wonderful leader. I mean, you've got so much support.
No, definitely not. Too old by then.
All right, understood. I don't blame you. I mean, Well, Christine, it's been lovely chatting with you.
Thank you.
And I hope the rain didn't dominate our conversation too much. Make it a bit cozy. And I'm glad you've come up to this neck of the woods, to our small cafe here.
Thank you.
And you live not too far from here.
Not far from here.
So anytime you want a moment of clarity, please come up, bring your laptop, your new notebook, whatever. It's very quiet in the morning.
Yeah.
We open at 8. You can find your own refuge here.
Thank you.
Away from the hustle and the bustle.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.